We are going to win either way. And we're going to set this country back on course. And we're not going to protect all of these nations where we're subsidizing the military protection of massive nations that are making fortunes of money, and they're paying us a fraction of what it costs. Can you imagine, as an example, Japan, great people, I love it, but we subsidize Japan. And yet they're sending us cars. You know, we send them wheat. We send them beef. They send us millions of cars. And we send them beef. And they don't want the beef. Half the time, they want to send it back. They don't even want it because their farmers don't want it. You talk about a trade imbalance. Take a look at the trade imbalance between the United States and Japan. One of the great trade imbalances anybody has ever seen. It's cars versus a piece of Kobe steak. You know why Kobe steak? Because it gets back and forth so much that by the time it finally gets in Japan, it's rotted. And that's what Kobe beef is, right? It's old beef that they charge a lot of money for, a pretty sad way. But let me just tell you, folks, let me just tell you, we've got to be smart. We can no longer subsidize all of the, we subsidize Germany. We subsidize Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia. Now, before the oil went down, they're still making a lot, but before the oil went, they were making $1 billion a day. And we're subsidizing them. We have our military. We are paying the rent on military bases. We're paying rent. They're charging us rent. And we're over there to protect them. And honestly, I have many Saudi friends, obviously many German friends. Obviously, I have a lot of people from Japan and other countries, South Korea. We have 28,000 soldiers on the line between North and South Korea. And every time, potentially the madman raises his head or opens his mouth, we send our ships and our planes and we have everybody ready. They got to pay us something we don't get. And if you, can you imagine if these countries paid just a fair price for this? You're talking about a whole different United States. This isn't 40 years ago, and it's not 20 years ago. We are stone cold broke. We owe $19 trillion. Nobody even knows what a trillion is. They don't know. I have a smart guy made millions and millions and maybe billions of dollars on Wall Street. I say, define trillion for me quickly. He said, let's see, it's you know. You know how much money this is? We owe $19 trillion, going up to $21 trillion because of the omnibus budget, which was passed. Which, by the way, allows Syrian refugees in. We have no idea where they are, who they are, where they come from. Excuse me, folks. They're coming to Pittsburgh. You just don't know it, okay? They're coming to Pittsburgh. You don't know it. They're being put all over the country just like they want to be. And who knows? You know, we talk about Trojan horse. We talk about Trojan horse. And maybe it's a Trojan horse, and maybe it's not. But we have enough problems in this country. When you look at Paris, when you look at San Bernardino, when you look at all these different places, a couple of things I have to tell you. We're going to give you a massive tax decrease and get this country back to work for business and for middle. Hillary Clinton is going to raise your taxes very substantially, possibly to 55 or 60%. That is going to be the end. She's going to raise your taxes. And you know what? She has no plan. She doesn't talk about it. She won't talk about it. She's got to raise them to at least 55%. I'm lowering taxes substantially for the middle class who are being run out of our country, and I'm lowering them for business. Big league. Another thing, we're getting rid of Common Core. We're going to bring education local. Local education. We're repealing and replacing Obamacare. 100%. Disaster. Obamacare is a disaster. Hillary Clinton wants to abolish the Second Amendment. In other words, she wants to take your guns away, folks. Now, the NRA, National Rifle Association, just endorsed me. I think it's the early endorsement they've ever given to a candidate. So we are going to stand totally strong. Totally strong. They want to abolish it. They literally want to take your guns away. You know, if in San Bernardino or in Paris, Paris is probably the toughest place in the world to have a gun. So these thugs walk in and they go boom, 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 kill 130, hundreds in the hospital, still in the hospital. They'll never, they'll never be the same. Just horrific injuries. And if we had a couple of like the folks here, like this guy here with the Trump hat on, the blue Trump hat right there, the handsome man with a beautiful head of hair. Look at the beautiful head of hair on that guy. What are you wearing a hat for? If we had a couple of people, if in San Bernardino or let's say Paris, they were in there and they had a gun right around here or a gun strapped around their ankle, and the bullets were flying in the opposite direction also, number one, they probably wouldn't have even gone there if they knew there were guns. Okay, remember that. Don't underestimate that. But number two, assuming they did and they started playing games, the carnage is going to be one hell of a lot smaller than it ended up being. So we are going to protect our Second Amendment. Hillary Clinton wants to abolish your Second Amendment. And I'll tell you what, on that issue alone, I think we win the election. I really do. I think we win the election. So a lot of things have happened. Our country doesn't win anymore. Our military, as we said, is depleted. But we're going to start taking care of it, and we're going to knock the hell out of ISIS. You're right. We're going to knock that. We have no choice. I didn't want to go in Iraq. I said I didn't want to go from the beginning. I didn't want. You're going to destabilize the Middle East. But you know what? And that's exactly what happened. I've been a good prognosticator. You know, about a month ago, I was asked on CNN by Wolf Blitzer. I was asked about NATO. Now, I'm a businessman. I'm not like asked about NATO too often. It's not like, oh, gee, I'm the old-time expert, but I have a lot of common sense. And I know NATO and I understand NATO. I said, what do you think about NATO? Something to that effect. And I said, well, let me tell you. Number one, it's obsolete because it doesn't really cover properly terrorism. Number two, you have countries in there, because I read this someplace, that aren't paying what they're supposed to pay, and some aren't paying practically at all. And we're protecting them, and if something happens to them, what do? Go into World War III over a country that's not even paying us? And the next day in the press, oh, that's terrible. What a terrible answer. He doesn't like NATO. Oh, that's a bunch of phony people. And then about 2 weeks after I said it, some people, you can't see the forest for the trees, right? All of a sudden, people that were experts in NATO were saying, Trump had a point. It is obsolete. And we don't really cover terror. And we don't even have the right countries in there if you're talking terror, because it's a different kind of terror. And Trump's right. And you know what else? A lot of these countries aren't paying. They're not paying. They owe us 2% of GDP or 3% of GDP. They're not paying. Because it's like in the real estate business, real estate, we say they're delinquent. They're not paying, they're delinquent. They're not paying. We have to get somebody to ask for the money. They got to pay. I mean, we're protecting them. They don't pay. And all of a sudden, people are saying, hey, that was good. All right, that was the end of that. Then 3 days ago, on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, NATO to open up massive terror operation. And I don't even know that much about NATO. It's called instinct. It's called common sense. That's what you need. And they don't give me credit. They only said in the article, like a little half sentence, Donald Trump complained about it also. Oh, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Because of me, and they've taken like one of their top generals, and they put him in charge. Good thing to do, by the way. Good thing to do. But I'm the one. If I didn't give that answer, and then the answer got a lot of heat, and then it got a lot of praise, but now they open front page of the Wall Street Journal, whole big article. NATO to operate an open major terror group, meaning to oversee. And one of their top people is put in charge. That's common sense, folks. That's common sense. Remember I said take the oil? I didn't want to be in Iraq, but I said when you leave, take the oil. Well, you know who's going to get the oil. ISIS already has the oil. And Iran's going to get the oil. You think Iran made a good deal with their deal? They made an even better deal because we practically handed them Iraq. For years, they would fight each other, right? They'd fight. Their military was almost identical. They go 10 feet this way, 10 feet that way, 10 feet. Then they take a break for 2 years. Then they fight. That's what they do, they fight. We found that out. They go and they fight, and this went on for decades. Then we decapitate, stupidly, we decapitate one of the militaries. And now Iran, as sure as you're standing here, Iran is taking over Iraq. We gave it to them. We handed them. They wanted to do it for forever. And we handed them. That's better than the Iran deal that our very incompetent Secretary of State signed with them. So now Iran is going to end up with Iraq. They have Yemen, and they don't want Yemen, but they love the border to Saudi Arabia. And let me just tell you, I said Saudi Arabia doesn't pay us nearly enough, right? Boy, would I do well. I'd say, fellas, I saw that magnificent 777, Boeing 777. You guys never want to fly commercial, do you? Because you know what? If we ever left Saudi Arabia, that thing would be gone so fast. So fast. And all you need is somebody that knows how to negotiate. They got to pay us for our services. They got to pay us. And if they pay us, we have a whole different country. If these people, and we're not doing it as a threat, and you have to be prepared to walk. It's possible we have to walk. And don't forget, we now have energy capacity that we're not even using because of all the restrictions and all of the problems. We now have, so we don't need these countries that we've died for and spent trillions of dollars for. So they got to help us out. They got to help us out. And just in closing, I'll say this. Look, when I decided to do it, I didn't need this. It's 140 degrees up here. That's the end of this suit. Soaking wet. Does anybody want my jacket? You don't want it. I don't need this. But I'm having a lot of fun. I'm getting to know the people of this country. We have unbelievable people. This country, you know, I say, make America great again. It's going to be make America great again for everybody. And it's also going to be, we can make America, I really believe this, greater than ever before. You know, when we had the debates, I didn't know anything about debating. And yet every single poll, Drudge, great guy, Time Magazine, all of Slate, I don't know, all these 7, 8 different polls. Every single poll had Trump winning every single debate. Every poll, every debate. I was on center stage, and I didn't know. I mean, Ted Cruz was this great student from Harvard and Princeton, and he was a debate champion. And they had me winning every debate. Okay, I don't want to get into, you know what? I like Ted Cruz. I just like, well, he's got to sign, you know, I don't care if people endorse me, but I do want them, when they sign the pledge, they got to sort of live up to what they signed, because then I feel differently. But we did great. But here's what happened. They go out, they go on Fox, they get 24 million people, the largest in the history of cable, right? Then a few weeks later, CNN goes on with a debate. The largest in the history of CNN. They cover wars, they cover big events. The debate. They have 23 million people on CNN, largest in the history of CNN, with all they've covered, and with their long and very incredible history. So they have the two biggest events in the history of cable television. Now, I'm not going to say it's because of me, but let's say if I wasn't in, maybe, what would you have, 2 people watching? Okay. So something's happening out there. It's a great thing. It's a beautiful thing to watch. I'm telling you. There's a movement going on that's incredible. One of the pollsters say, any number that Donald Trump gets, you can add something to it. Because a lot of time, it's a very embarrassing statement. You know, it goes both ways. Sometimes you'll have this stiff who's a nice person. And everybody wants to say, yes, I'll vote for him. But then they get in, they vote for somebody else. With me, it's just the opposite. They say, when he goes into the vote, they won't tell us because they don't want us to know that we're voting for Donald Trump. Somebody said he's too tough. Hillary says, I don't like his temperament. She said, I don't like his tone. We have people chopping off the heads of Christians and anybody else that gets in the way in the Middle East. We have people killing people at the border like you've never seen before. The crime is far greater than anybody knows. I was right about that, by the way. And we have all of these things happening. And she says, I don't like his tone. Well, let me tell you, a book was written by a Secret Service agent, and they talked about Hillary. And they said, she's a horror show. She's got the worst temperament they've ever seen. She's a maniac. And if she was ever president, it would be a disaster. So, folks, true, so true. So, folks, we don't win anymore, but we're going to win. We're going to win with our military. We're going to win on trade. We're going to win at the border. We're going to win with health care. We're going to win with education. We're going to save our Second Amendment. We are going to win again, folks. We are going to win so much. I won't go through the whole exercise, which I love doing and you love hearing, but you know what? I won't do it. I'm just telling you. She says, do it, please. I'm just telling you, we are going to win so much. You're going to be so proud of your president, and you're going to be so proud, much more importantly, you're going to be so proud of your country. We're going to win. We're going to reduce your taxes. We're going to save your Social Security. We're going to win at every single front. I love you, Pittsburgh. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you. Thank you.